Hey, what's going on, everybody? So the Packers and Jets preseason game just finished. The Jets beat the Packers 23-14. So currently the Packers are 0-2 in the preseason. Obviously, though, with it being the preseason, doesn't really matter. Doesn't mean anything for the actual season. Considering the Packers, I think they sat 32 players today. So this is pretty much, the Packers' second and third string guys, fighting for those final spots on the 53-man roster, which is going to be finalized in the next 10 days. And so I sort of want to go through my biggest takeaways from this Packers preseason game. A few different guys who stood out, from the Packers, a couple on offense, one or two on defense. But obviously coming into this game, unfortunately, Jordan Love wasn't able to go. He's been dealing with that shoulder injury since last preseason game where, the guy came across, hit his throwing shoulder, sort of messed him up. And all week he's basically been, resting. Unfortunately, he didn't get to go, which means Kurt Benkert got the opportunity to come in here and start for the Green Bay Packers. And honestly, he had a pretty solid game. I know in my 53-man roster prediction, I was thinking, okay, maybe the Packers only keep two quarterbacks just so they can keep more depth elsewhere. But after that performance from Kurt Benkert, I feel like he has lots of potential, and maybe if the Packers were to release him, some other team would come and scoop him up. So now I'm sort of thinking that I'm sort of hoping the Packers keep him around just because there are some times, there where he was looking a little more, a little better than Jordan Love did. And that's not to say he's better than Jordan Love. That's not to say that, he, doesn't have as much potential as Jordan Love, but it was a question in my mind. A few different times I was like, he's looking pretty good. Overall in the day, though, he didn't finish off quite as hot. The first half, he was on fire. I think he was like 12 of 16, maybe 14 of 16, one of those. But two of them were drops as well. So he finished the day, Kurt Benkert, 18 for 25, 151 yards, one touchdown. It was like a 5-yard pass to Jay Sternberger. But he did throw one interception, and it was a pretty bad interception in the second half. I think he was rolling out. Patrick Taylor, running back, was cutting across. He throws a pretty terrible ball, gets intercepted. So he finished off with an 83.9 rating. In the first half, it was somewhere around 120. But I think he showed a ton. He's willing to sling it. He's not afraid to run. He's not afraid to, chunk it deep. And he was pretty accurate most of the day. And so I'm pretty excited for Kurt Benkert if he does stay around. If he doesn't and another team scoops him up, I wish him the best, but maybe he stays around here in Green Bay. Then moving to the other side of the ball, probably what most people are wanting to know about. If you're a Jets fan, probably you want to know more about this. Zach Wilson had a solid day, 9 for 11, 128 yards, finishing off with 2 touchdowns and a 154.7 rating. So pretty much a lights-out day from rookie Zach Wilson for the Jets. Leading receiver for the Jets was Corey Davis, 4 receptions for 70 yards. The Packers just didn't really have an answer for Zach Wilson. The Jets were playing a lot of their starters, but the Packers were playing their second and third string guys. So maybe against the Packers, actual starters with Jair Alexander out there, maybe, be a little different. You add, Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos. Things probably would have been different for Zach Wilson, but Jets fans, you have a lot to look forward to with Zach Wilson. He looked pretty solid in this one, in this preseason game versus the Packers. And then moving on back to the Packers, one guy who really stood out to me, who stood out last week as well, is Malik Taylor. Obviously, right now, the Packers are, trying to figure out the end of that wide receiver room, as well as how many wide receivers they'll keep, because as I've said consistently, there's pretty much 5 already locked in there: Devontae, MVS, Allen Lazard, Amari Rodgers, Randall Cobb. And the question is, are they going to keep 6, 7, maybe 6? Will Devin Funchess make it? The thing is, Malik Taylor is really playing well. He had 4 receptions for 66 yards in this one. He's just a guy who's able to catch the ball when he's being smacked. He can hold onto the ball. He's a strong receiver, and he showed it once again in this game. Also, his ability on special teams is important as well. With these final roster spots getting grabbed by the Packers. So also now with Devin Funchess' injury, I'm wondering if Malik Taylor has pushed his way ahead of Devin Funchess, because maybe the Packers don't want to keep 7 wide receivers, and if they don't, and Malik Taylor keeps playing this well, maybe he, pushes Devin Funchess out for this final roster spot. We don't exactly know what Devin Funchess' injury is, and so it's not to say that he's out of the question of, coming or being on the roster this year, but he did look pretty solid in that first preseason game, so I'm sort of wondering what's going to happen. We'll probably see. Maybe we'll see more in this final preseason game for the Packers coming up, whenever it is in the next week or two, whenever it is. But Malik Taylor once again looked, pretty solid in this one. I think he had 1 drop, but besides that, he looked real solid. And then another, takeaway from this game, and also on the Packers offense, the Packers backfield is going to be pretty stacked this year. I mean, it's no question already. Re-signing Aaron Jones, having him there, he's a beast. A.J. Dillon played in this game a little bit. He started off in the first couple series, had 4 carries for 28 yards. And I mean, A.J. Dillon, we all know he's a beast. His legs are massive. His thighs are massive. And he can just pretty much run over every single person. And in this game, in his 4 carries, he was just plowing through people. People couldn't tackle him. They have trouble. So when the Packers have a guy like A.J. Dillon, who I think if he was by himself in a backfield and he was getting all the carries, I feel like he could be up there, top 5, top 10 running back. So the fact that the Packers have him outside of, Aaron Jones, I mean, it's just amazing. And then you throw in Kylan Hill, 7th round draft pick, who's continuing, to show, just how good he could potentially be. I think the Packers backfield is pretty stacked. Kylan Hill this game had 7 carries for 29 yards, and this one had a touchdown as well. I don't know if you guys saw that touchdown, but it was a pretty solid run by Kylan Hill. Of course, Patrick Taylor and Dexter Williams are 2 guys, who were sort of fighting for that final spot. Patrick Taylor actually did finish with the most rushing yards for the Packers. He had 8 carries for 48 yards, and he looks pretty solid as well. He did fumble a ball, so that's probably, a mark against him. And then Dexter Williams this game, not great. He had one pretty solid, I think, kick return, but Dexter Williams finished with 8 carries for 22 yards, averaging 2.8 yards per carry. So, from this game, offensive takeaways, Kurt Benkert actually looks pretty solid. I think that he actually has, some potential if he can, develop a little more. He looked really good in this game, pretty confident. Also, Packers backfield stacked. Malik Taylor looking like a beast. And then moving to the defensive side, not as many takeaways from the defensive side. I'm sort of interested to go back and sort of watch the game and watch certain players, sort of see how they performed, especially, Yeadham, the new cornerback the Packers traded Josh Jackson for. I saw a little bit from him, a couple, good stops, but I'm curious to see how he did overall. I'm curious to see, what PFF says, like how many times he was targeted, how many receptions he allowed, and I may go back and watch some of the game and sort of see maybe what I saw from him more. So that should be interesting to see. I'm curious if he'll make the roster. The fact that Packers traded Josh Jackson, who last week looked pretty terrible in that preseason game. I think he allowed like 7 receptions. So Yeadham didn't really look too bad. There weren't many plays where I was like, oh no, he got completely beat. There were a couple times where he got some solid stops. So who knows if he makes the roster? Honestly, I have no clue about that one. And then probably the other guy who really stood out to me in this one, I mean, he came in with a sack, TJ Slayton. He came in, I mean, he's a beast. The Packers drafted him this year, primarily a run stopper, but he also showed that he can get it done when it comes to rushing the quarterback, finishing off with a sack in this game versus the New York Jets. So honestly, thinking about this Packers defense when the season actually starts and our actual guys are out there, we already have Kenny Clark, a guy who people lots of times have to come in and double team because he's such a beast. And imagine now throwing in TJ Slayton right alongside Kenny Clark, you're going to have some trouble blocking both of those guys because, considering you can't double team both of them most likely. So one of them is going to be, one-on-one, probably going to beat you. So I'm pretty pumped to see TJ Slayton, doing as well as he has. Last week he had a couple, pretty solid stops, just reaching out, grabbing people, throwing people around. So I'm pumped that the Packers have him as well. But those are probably my biggest takeaways, the top of the things off my mind just from watching the game. I'll probably go back and watch the game again in the next few days, and maybe I'll come away with some other takeaways watching some different positions specifically. But those are sort of my main takeaways from this game. If you guys want to see more Packers content on this channel, I put out content on here pretty much, 1 to 2 times a day, most times during the week. So if you want to see that, stay up to date with all things Packers, all news, all breakdowns, it will all be on this channel. So subscribe to the channel down below. But thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. We have one more preseason game, and the actual season starts, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Fun that as football is finally back. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.